Test. Testing. Testing, testing, testing audio. There we go. Testing audio. Hi, Jacob. It's Marlon Parrott with MADA. Our apologies for messing up the 2 o'clock time. We'll get started here in just a few minutes. Waiting on a couple more to join. Okay, guys, we're going to go ahead and get started. It's 2:45. Seem to have an audio issue. Let me make sure that my audio is working. There we go. We should have it. Excuse me. This is Marlon with MADA. My apologies for messing up the 2 o'clock webinar. This pandemic thing has got me completely screwed up and I dropped the ball. So my apologies. Appreciate you guys being able to join us. We're going to go ahead and get rolling. So a few things on new employee orientation that we need to talk about today. Really willing to take a few minutes to focus on safety on your job. We're going to talk about the dealership stance on your safety, your individual responsibilities, how to work with chemicals, PPE that might be required for jobs that you do, good housekeeping, emergencies, driving safety, reporting unsafe conditions to your supervisor, and what to do if an injury occurs. So let's get started. First, I just kind of want to tell you guys, I'm assuming everybody's a new employee. We have a few older folks that join us from time to time, but for the most part, it's new hires. I want to tell you just a little bit about your dealership that we can vouch that your dealership cares for your safety. Your employee obviously cares about your safety. That's why you're here with us today on the webinar. You being safe at your job benefits everyone, your employer, your coworkers that rely on you being at work, and especially you. No pain, no missed work, no permanent disabilities. We think this is a good thing. So preventing accidents, nobody gets hurt, nobody misses work, nobody has maybe a lifelong debilitating injury. We think that's a positive. So we're also going to talk a little bit about how safety on the job lowers cost to your employer. Lower expenses usually allows them to provide more raises, more benefits, additional new equipment for you to use, etc. And as we can see, safety really does benefit everyone. Okay. What are your responsibilities regarding the dealership safety program or being safe in your job at the dealership? Your primary responsibilities follow all rules, procedures, and policies as established by your employer. Report any unsafe conditions, acts, any type of equipment to your supervisor immediately. Use the safety equipment that you are provided. Make sure to let your supervisor know if you need safety gear or personal protective equipment that you don't have. And we'll talk about what types of PPE you should have available here in a second. Report any injuries to your employer as soon as they occur. Keep your work areas clean and in good condition, and then take a proactive approach to working safely. Be a leader, not a follower, when it comes to setting the pace for safety. This really does make a difference. Let's talk about hazardous chemicals. In a dealership, there are certain hazardous chemicals in body shops and details, even in the cleaning closet, that could affect your safety on the workplace and that need to be handled with carefully and with proper knowledge. Just a few pointers. Never take chemicals for granted. Never assume that since you haven't had a problem before, you never will. There's some cleaning chemicals that if they get mixed can cause devastating health effects. Read the material, the safety data sheet for each chemical that you use. Know where the SDSs are kept, and make sure that you read them and be familiar with the chemicals that you're using and the preventative steps, protective equipment that you need to use, etc. Keep containers closed until needed. Make sure they're labeled properly. Don't eat, smoke, or drink where you use or store toxic chemicals. I literally the other day saw a microwave with a coffee cup on top and a battery beside it, and some aerosol cans of cleaning chemicals, some pretty strong, nasty cleaning chemicals. Now, I don't know what they were cooking in the microwave or putting in their coffee cup, but I bet it didn't taste good when carburetor cleaner mixed with it. So just don't eat, drink, or smoke where you use toxic chemicals. And then make sure you use the proper personal protective equipment for the chemical you're using. You might need PPE might include safety glasses, a face shield, chemical resistant gloves, respirator, protective clothing, etc. Really anything that you wear is classified as PPE. And it's also important to know the 5 routes of exposures for chemicals to determine what type of PPE you need. So a route of exposure is how do chemicals get into your system? Does it soak through the skin? Does it go through your eyes? Do you breathe it? Can you inject it? Do you absorb it through the skin? How do you get into your system? So knowing how that chemical affects you and knowing how that chemical exposes you helps you make a better decision on safety equipment you need to use or what type of gloves, what type of face shield, eye protection, etc. Always use PPE when needed. You might need eye protection. You might need protective clothing, gloves, respirators, hearing protection, as we discussed. It's determined by the job at hand. Again, look at the safety data sheets to determine what chemicals, consider the hazards of the jobs that you're doing. Is a burn, cut, scrape, puncture possible? Does it create flying objects, dust, or radiation? We pick the personal protective equipment based on those hazards. Different types of eye protection. Again, is it a face shield? Is it a goggle? Is it a spectacle? Is it shaded or tinted safety glasses because of using an acetylene torch? Are they just regular sunglasses because you're going to be outside working the lot all day? So make sure that you know what type of PPE that you need and that you use it. Know how to clean and inspect and store the PPE. You need to know how often it needs to be changed. If it's a respirator, how long is that respirator good for? How do we store it properly to make sure that it has the maximum life that it needs? Okay. And if you have any questions, always contact your supervisor if you need PPE replaced, if you don't have something that you need, or if you have any questions on how to properly use personal protective equipment. A little bit about housekeeping. It's amazing how many slip, trips, and falls types of injuries are actually caused by poor housekeeping. It could be tools left on the floor, it could be trash on the floor, it could be a hose or a cord or a mechanic's creeper left on the floor that somebody steps on and trips. Very important to practice good housekeeping in the dealership. Don't throw trash on the floor. Put it in trash receptacles instead. We see a lot of detail shops where they clean a car out with an air hose and they don't sweep up between. Had several people tell me that, well, we always clean up at night before we go home, and then I usually tell them nobody slips and falls when there's nobody there. So it does need to be cleaned up as soon as it comes out of the vehicle. Don't just let it hit the floor and stay there. Keep hoses and cords that you aren't using rolled up and put away. Clean up spills of chemicals immediately. Keep razor blades put up and discarded properly. Keep containers labeled and in good condition, readable condition, and keep soiled shop rags in proper containers, not on floors, not in cardboard boxes or open buckets, only in metal UL-approved containers. So I think we can all agree this is just common sense stuff. Don't throw a razor blade on the floor. Make sure you keep it up. Pick the trash up. Don't leave hoses and cords laying out that people have to step and trip over. A large cause of, actually very frequently caused injury in service department are people stepping on air hoses and rolling ankles. So let's just keep them picked up and cleaned up. While we're talking about cuts and punctures, here's a few tips. 3 of the most common dealership injuries to fixed operations employees, meaning parts and service and body shop, are hands, fingers, and eyes. To help prevent hand and finger injuries, make sure to use a razor blade holder when scraping or cutting with a razor blade. Wear mechanics gloves to prevent cuts and scrapes to hands and knuckles. Mechanics gloves are also help provide protection from vibration stress from air tools and burns from hot engines or hot vehicle components. Again, dispose of razor blades properly. Don't throw them on the floor, don't lay them on benches, and don't put them on electrical outlets. Make sure that they tape the blades before discarding. Better yet, get an empty box or an empty coffee can, cut a slit in the top, and use it to store your razor blades in to discard. And this should go without ever saying, but never carry a razor blade in your mouth or behind your ear. We see this, unfortunately, a lot. Imagine what would happen if you're carrying a razor blade in your teeth and you trip and fall into a face plant. So that could be very, very, very serious. And then just wear leather gloves when disposing of sharp metal components or when trashing body panels. That's really more for the body shop or for porters, detailers who are doing the cleaning around the shop. Let's talk a little bit about emergencies. If you have a weather emergency in the dealership, it's important to know what the dealership's plan is. Do you evacuate? Do you stay in place? What's the policy as far as driving vehicles during severe weather, etc.? You need to know where to take shelter in the event of a tornado or other severe weather event. What are exit routes, rally points, etc., that need to be used in the event you have to evacuate the building? What about reporting fires and alarm systems? How about active shooter and other workplace violence incidents? Does your dealership have a plan? Do you know what that plan is? Do you know what you should do if that event that occurs? And unfortunately, in today's world, we do have to worry about workplace violence and active shooters, as well as just keeping the exits open for fires and emergencies. So it's good to have a plan, know the plan, and know what to do in case this occurs. Make sure you know the location of emergency equipment such as first aid kits, fire extinguishers, eye wash stations, AEDs, if available, etc. Know how to use all emergency equipment properly. If you don't know what to do, you need more information, training on emergencies, ask your supervisor for more training. Your supervisor can call us. We can come in and do training and help provide that kind of information also. Let's talk a little bit about driving safety. I bet everybody on this call either drove or rode in a car today so far, or you will before the day's over. So it really applies to everybody. Everybody drives either a dealership or customer-owned car, and of course their job. Follow all laws, wear your seatbelt. This is still the #1 cause of fatality in a workplace. Vehicle crashes without a seatbelt, warn. If you're in service or sales, ask if the dealership has an established demo or test drive route. Many dealerships do. You need to follow them because they exist for your safety. If you're going on a test route, make sure you tell your supervisor where you're going and how long you're going to be gone in addition to that. Let your supervisor know when you're driving how long you'll be gone. I just covered that point. So let them know if you have anybody else with you. Take a cell phone with you, but don't use the cell phone while you are driving. But have it in your pocket in case a car breaks down or you have other problems and need to contact the dealership. Okay. Reporting unsafe conditions. Report any unsafe condition, unsafe equipment, unsafe act by coworkers or safety corrections needed immediately to your supervisor. You work in the area your supervisor does not. You're going to be the expert on which equipment doesn't work, what problems are in the area, maybe a jack that's leaking or a lift that's leaking. Make sure that you pass that on to your supervisor. They depend upon you, and they depend on this feedback to help make your job safer. Okay, it's your safety. Again, just take an interactive role in that. If an injury occurs, report it immediately to your supervisor or designated person, regardless of how severe you think it may or may not be. Any medical attention must be authorized by the dealership. If you get hurt and you need to go to a doctor, it has to be authorized by the dealership or by the insurance company. If you choose to go to your own provider, you can, but you may be required to pay for it yourself if it wasn't authorized by your employer. Think about what caused the injury, what specifically you can do to prevent the same injury from happening again. Okay, not trying to place blame, just take a couple minutes and think, how did this injury occur? What happened? Was it equipment failure? Did I do something wrong? Did I need safety equipment I didn't use? And just try to learn from that. That's all we're asking. If you were injured because you didn't follow a safety rule or policy established by the dealership, you may actually be required to pay a portion of the expenses for treatment yourself. That is Missouri law. If you're grinding, not wearing safety glasses, and you get something in your eye, they could come back and make you pay for a portion of that because you did not follow that policy that was established by your company. So very important. Make sure you follow all of the dealership's safety rules and policies established. So that wraps up our webinar. Again, my apologies for the mess up that we had earlier. I appreciate you guys being here. Just want to take a second and just say congratulations on your new job. We appreciate the time that you took to come and learn a little bit about safety and maybe just let us focus a little bit on the importance of safety in the dealership. We wish you a long and healthy dealership career. Now go forth and be safe. Have a great day. Thank you.